Okay. Hello, Mr. Uegas. I appreciate you coming to me this afternoon to discuss the walkthrough that we completed this morning in your classroom. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good, good. Just trying to get through the rest of the day so we can get to the weekend and, helping my students get this math stuff under control. So,
Absolutely, 110%. So, like I said, I wanted to kind of touch on a few things that I saw in the classroom that I liked. Some things that were good that I wanted to kind of talk to you about, and then some things that I think we could improve on in the classroom, and where myself and the administration team can help you. Okay,
yeah.
does that sound good to you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that when I walked into your classroom, it was evident that the students were walking together in groups, right? So, and that was really, really good. I liked that piece. And then you were also walking around the classroom and monitoring them, right? Um, and the students were also walking with, at first I thought it was independence, but as I was in there, I realized it was they were doing a group walk, right?
Right.
And I really, really liked that, especially in a math classroom. I also liked how you went up to one group that was kind of off task a little bit and you kind of helped them get back on track, right?
Right.
That was really, really good that I saw. Um, Now, I'm not sure about the special education students, if you have any in the classroom. I'm not sure about ELL, but we can figure that out, right? One thing that I saw in the class that I didn't see, and maybe you have it and I didn't see it, was your classroom procedures that you have in that need to be in the classroom. Do you have that information?
So there's a list on the wall, right? You can't see it in the video, but when you walk in the door, I have a list of rules and then I have a list of kind of the way we do certain things, like about raising our hands, those types of things, where things go. They know where the turn-in baskets are. They know if you're missing a supply, let's say you need an extra pencil, rather than interrupt, there's a place to go grab an extra pencil if you need that. So in case you break yours or you forgot yours or something like that. So yes, we definitely have, passes if you need to go to the restroom, all those different procedures we have in our classroom. And, but I like to teach them up front those procedures so that they don't have to stop and ask, because that allows me to continue what we're doing. If a student needs to get up and grab something, they don't have to stop me from teaching. They can just get up, grab it, and go back and sit down. And so that's kind of how we run our classroom.
Okay. That's a really, really good way for you to run a classroom, especially because I believe your classroom is eighth grade, right?
Yes.
I believe it's eighth grade, so that's good because they're getting ready to go to high school and they're going to have a little bit more freedom when they get to high school. I also want to ask you about, and I didn't see it, what about the behavior piece of that?
So again, I do post the rules. They do also have at the beginning of the year, I print out a copy of the rules and a copy of the potential consequences, understanding that consequences don't always get to fall in order. If something is more severe, it may not warrant just a detention after school. If you do something really bad, you're going to go see the principal. But I do that so they can acknowledge the rules. And so they sign the form and their parents sign the form so that no one can say they didn't know the rules. And so I keep that form filed in, each student has their own individual file in my filing cabinet. That way, if a kid breaks a rule and wants to say that they didn't know it was a rule, or if their parents want to say, well, he wasn't aware that that was a rule, well, I'm like, well, here, you sign this paper saying, here are the rules that I acknowledge to abide by. And so that's how I like to make sure they're understanding of the rules. And usually, I'm not one who has a lot of discipline issues. I do think it helps that I'm a coach and they have to come see me for athletics and things like that. So if they break the rules in my class, they're going to probably have some punishment out there on the field. And so I've learned over the years that's a little bit of a benefit of being a coach. So
110%. I can honestly say you have good classroom management in that classroom. The kids were doing their work. They were, you know, you had a group of tables that were, getting off track, but when they saw you move on over there, they got back to work.
Well, and that's one of the things about the groups and the small group setting. What it allows me to do is that instead of kind of giving the same instruction to everybody, I get to go around to each table to see who needs a little more support. Maybe one group is at a different struggling point with the math question than the different group is. But by having a group there, the other groups that I'm not working with can work with each other. And so sometimes it does get a little louder because they're talking, trying to, you know, not argue, but trying to discuss with each other how they got the answer they got. And you're right. Sometimes they do tend to get off a little subject. So I have to walk by and tap the desk, or I just have to walk a little closer and they get back on track. But
Mhm.
I like the ability to let them have some peer collaboration on how to solve the math problems, how to learn the formulas, and those types of things.
Yeah, that was really, really good because I believe I saw you in two different groups. You walked over to one group to see how they were walking, and then, of course, you walked to the other one that was maybe a little bit off task, and you got him back on task. But I like that. I like the groups. That's phenomenal to see, especially in a math class. So that's awesome. So I also want to talk about the students being able to show their thinking, right? At the end of my observation, or maybe about towards the middle, I saw some students were able to give you their thinking and why they think that answer is the correct answer, right? And then you had some students that were like, I don't agree with how you did it. I don't
Right.
like that. I don't
Well,
like that. I really, okay, I'm not saying I don't like the that to be done. But the students were like, I don't like that. That's wrong. I really, really like that because you're letting students kind of collaborate with each other on how to get the right answer.
and there's two reasons why I do this. It's one is it's a known strategy that I think everybody does, and one is a little bit more of something that I kind of developed over the years. The first reason I let students, for example, I'll call up a student to go up to the board and demonstrate. That's for me to check their understanding. Obviously, that's normal. Everybody does that, and I want to make sure that they know what they're doing. But another thing that I've realized with some of my students, and you'd be surprised, is some of them are very not very, they lack a little confidence in themselves.
Hmm.
And so if I go by, like with the young man that you saw go up to the board, he questions whether or not he's doing it right, and sometimes he doesn't feel like he's on level with everybody else. So when I went by, I saw that he had the right answer. So I knew that if I put him on the board, he would show them the right answer, and that would give him a little more confidence. And so that's just a little thing that I kind of do with some students to kind of help them with that process. I knew it was right. I wouldn't have put him up there if I knew he had the wrong answer because I wouldn't want to embarrass him. So I knew he would be able to kind of gain a little confidence from going up to the board and saying, "Here's what I did." Yes, there are going to be some students that are like, "Well, I did it a different way. I didn't like it," but overall, we all know that even though I try to teach this is the way to do it, there are different ways to do math, and so my goal is to get the students to get the right answer. So
Absolutely. Like I used to say when I was a math teacher, I don't care how you get the answer, just that you get the right answer. Because there's different ways to get answers.
yes.
So that was really good. I really liked that. Um, And then I also liked your closing activity, and I have never seen this out of any of the math teachers that are on campus. I've never seen this. Simon Says. That was cool. I have to say it, that was neat because you're helping the students that might not understand the different angles, you're helping them understand the angles, right?
Yeah.
And that's important to do.
Well, and kids love games,
Hmm.
and kids also love to win, right? They love the competition, and if they can, think they got away with beating me because they won the Simon Says part of that little lesson, that's always a great takeaway, for my students, and I've learned that they really really like that activity. And honestly, I hear from students later on when they get to high school, even sometimes when they get to college, and they'll still remember that little activity of being able to kind of play that little game and stuff like that. And we're here 8 hours a day. They get 8 hours of instruction. There's got to be a little time to break the monotony and lighten the mood and let them, we want them to enjoy learning, not just come to school and dread it. So I found little tricks like that along the way.
Always 110%. I also want to talk about your exit ticket that you did at the end of the lesson. Um, so I'm going to go back a little bit. So the exit ticket, I like that you brought the whole group together, right? You brought the whole group together. You asked them, did we meet this objective? Which was great. You were seeing if they met their objective. But I'm also going to ask, what if you would have had those students that say, no, I did not understand how you're doing it?
So the thing about exit tickets and even bell ringers, warm ups, whatever you want to call them, is that this is the opportunity for me to spiral material in that they may need reinforced. So, for example, let's say at the exit ticket today, quite a few of them would have been like, "Well, I just still don't get it." Well, we're out of time for today, but I know now tomorrow's warm up needs to start with what we finished with today. That way I can make sure before we move on, because as you know, math is usually a spiraling curriculum that builds on itself. I can't go on to the next thing until I'm sure they understand it. So I want to start off the next day. And so even if that exit ticket doesn't achieve exactly what I'm looking for that day, it leads me to what I need to start the next day with. If that's a little bit of reteach or a little bit of, just like I said, spiraling that back in, maybe I put a warm up with the next topic, but I have another warm up with this topic one more time just to make sure they get it before we move on.
Okay. And then I also have another question about the classes, because I know here in middle school we have about 6 classes. What if one class has like a 65% average for the exit ticket, but your second class has an 80% average for the exit ticket? What are you going to do in that sense?
So again, that those are the best places to use that review component. So as you know, this district has a very strict scope and sequence. And I can't get behind, a day or two or three if I'm going to try to get all the material covered by the end of the year. So having those exit tickets, and it doesn't even have to be about today. Let's just say that I still remember yesterday was a struggle. We've moved on today, but I can still use that exit ticket for one particular class. Maybe their exit ticket is the same as the other classes with an extra question in the exit ticket that goes back to what we missed yesterday. So it just gives me flexibility to add in some review or some pre-view of the next thing. And that way, one class isn't getting far ahead, but I make sure that both classes or all the classes end up at the same spot and are staying on the same pace as we move forward. Because let's say my student has to transfer rooms, they get a schedule change. If they go in from first period to third period, I need to make sure third period's in the same place,
Hmm.
because that student needs to just be able to sit down and start right where he left off in the other classroom.
Hmm. Okay. So now I want to talk about some glows that I saw that I
Okay.
really, really liked. And if you want to kind of tell your other teachers, hey, this is what he liked, you can. Right. Okay, so I like that the students were working in groups. That was really good, especially when you were with one group, like you said a few minutes ago, like you were with one group, and then the other group has a question. Maybe a student at that group understands how to do it, which was really good. I also liked, and I think I've already touched on this, is students are able to explain their thinking and explain if they don't agree with their classmates, which is life. We don't agree with everything. So that was really good. That's also a life skill. I'll say that. Um, I also want to say you made sure the students understood the topic and the content during okay at the end, during the exit ticket, during the little Simon Says game that you played, which again I really liked. You made sure they understood that. And then you also asked if the objective was met, if they felt like the objective was met. That's what I liked that I saw. And maybe there's a few other things that I saw that that happened that I did not see. Excuse me. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of get some feedback. the goal for me is to continue to improve as a teacher. And even if my scores are really good, that doesn't mean I can't continuously get better. And so I just want to be able to provide the best opportunities and best experiences for my students. So I like, the walkthrough process and the fact that you share some things that I can do better. But also, it's also nice to hear the things that I am doing well, because that makes us all, it makes everybody feel better when you get to hear compliments. So
Absolutely, 110%. And what I'm going to do is later on this afternoon or this evening, I am going to send a follow-up email so we both have that documentation. Does that work for
sounds
you?
good. Yes, sir.
All right. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.
Oh, how do I do that?
Um,
Oh,
go
I get it.